Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the RegiCast. I'm your host, Reginald. Joining me today is Maria. Hey, Maria, how are you?
Hi, Reggie. Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I'm doing all right.
Good.
So we're just gonna get right into it. Maria's a good friend of mine. So I hopefully we're gonna have some stuff to talk about, things mostly OP related. So we're gonna get right into that. But first, as always, I'm going to ask you, what were your first impressions? What the first impressions of me are, and then I'll share mine.
Okay. So I'm gonna be super candid here, just because I'm in that vibe. I had a little crush on you in the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, because you were very like articulate, and like you just seemed like somebody who's very intelligent. So that was my first impression of you, and then I think as we got to know each other, as we got to talking, I realized that you were very intense, um, and very like serious. And I think it just goes back to the whole like social type number one thing. They say that like number ones need to kind of lighten up. Like I got that vibe from you, like very very intense, very serious. Yeah, that kind of vibe.
Wow. That's so interesting. I would have never thought that was the first impression because yeah, that's so funny. Mine is actually kind of similar. I think my first impression of you was I thought you were too cool for me, honestly.
I'm not anymore.
I mean, that's like
What happened?
we're just chilling now. I don't know what else to tell you. Like we're just hanging out. Um, but I think at the beginning, I think you know what it was. I think it's the way in which you I don't know how else to word it, but you're able to be very casual with like certain people when we were on the Discord, when I was on the OP Discord back in the day. I just saw that you were very casual with people. You were able to joke around with people very easily. You're able to like, make people laugh and things like that. And I thought, oh, okay, this person seems to have you seemed very light to me, in a good way. And I think that it's interesting that you said the whole thing about the number ones because you're typed as a number one, but I didn't get that impression of you.
Mm-hmm.
I got the more of the impression of I would have probably typed you as something like friends or number two or something like that
Mm.
personally,
Yeah,
just
yeah. I
because of the
mean, yeah. One of the things that I think Dave said, when I got the audio back was, yeah, with the double feminine. He was like, usually and like being EP, like double feminine and EP, usually like friendly vibes, but not like too overly friendly because of the demon friends.
Mhm.
So if I was like friend savior, he was saying that it would have been like really really overly friendly, but with the double feminine and being EP, he was like, yeah, you're usually a friendlier type.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so let's just dive straight into that. So we both met through the objective personality system like community. Objective personality system is basically like what it sounds like. It's like a personality typing system. It kind of based itself off of MBTI. Check it out if you guys haven't heard of it. It's a really great system. But one of the things in the objective personality that's been popping up recently is social types, right? And we're both typed as number one. So I wanted us to first dive into that,
Hmm.
and just talk a little bit about what our experience has been, what we have in common, what you're noticing,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Um, did you have a specific question, or did you want me to just?
I would say go ahead and just start like whatever comes to mind, and then I'll have some follow up questions.
Yeah. So, I can definitely see the intense drive. And how that shows up for me is, I feel like with everything, all of the challenges, all of the obstacles that I've gone through in my life, I feel like um, I purposefully sometimes like do things that are hard and challenging, just for the sake of, I know that I will be better for it in the long run if I just get it out of the way, kind of
Mhm.
thing. But also just challenges that I haven't put on myself, things that have like happened to me, or I feel like I've been able to get through a lot of those things because I constantly have this thing where I'm telling myself, I know it's going to get better, I know it can get better, there's better, and I just need to I just need to keep going. So I
Mhm.
can see a lot of what I've been through and all of the struggles that I've gone through. I feel like I've been able to push through them because I have this drive, something in me that just tells me just to keep going, just to push through the hard, just to push through the difficult, because I just always assume that there's going to be better if I at the end of it. That's
Right.
one of the things that I see.
Right. Okay. So the first question that comes to my mind is, do you relate at all to the two number ones being described as competitive?
Yes, yeah. And I mentioned this in the interview with Danny. I have an example. So you know Tina from the
Uh,
community.
sure.
She's MF me,
Okay.
and she was processing her social type as well, and she basically is under the impression that she's number one. So when she said that, I automatically had this thought in me that okay, here's another person who's a number one who's in my lane. This is a competition. This choose my
Really?
competition. Yeah, and then it was like if Tina starts to do well in life, I've got to level up. I've got to match that. You know, I can't fall behind. I can't be the very last of the people in my lane. So if I see like Tina doing well in life, that just gives me motivation to kind of step up my game, and I kind of need to match that energy. I kind of need to not fall behind, because like falling behind is
That
like
is
death to me.
that is interesting to me. I mean, I have something similar with where I compare myself to a lot of different people where I don't
Yeah.
want to fall behind. I always attributed that to DE in the past.
Mm.
But you're saying that's more of the number one energy. So I think that's very interesting.
Mm. That's how I'm seeing it. I think there's just this competitive. It is not in the sense that I want to crush her or in like a malicious way, but just the sense that I can't be the last one of the people in my lane. Like I have to either be matching people on the same level or better. You know, I can't be falling behind. And
Right.
so it's just a need to just keep going and keep matching people so that so I'm not left behind.
And I mean, what happens when you like, I guess, how are you defining left behind? Maybe that's a good question here.
Um, so I guess okay. I guess I can use another example. Another kind of competitive an example of when I was competitive was so me and my brother, there's only 2 years apart, and I feel like there's just normal sibling rivalry in general. But as we've gotten older, I feel like I've watched him because he's 2 years older than me. I feel like I've watched him go through milestones in life, and I felt like in order to, I guess, appease my parents, I kind of had to match his energy and like the things that he was doing. So
Mhm.
like, you know, he started a business. Now I have to start a business. You know,
Oh, right.
he's getting a degree. Now I have to get a degree. And you know, I have to kind
Right.
of like keep up in that sense, because if he's now starting to do well and he's getting all these praise from parents, and again with like sibling rivaling things, but it just feels like I can't be the one who's left behind. I can't be the sibling who's just wasting away doing nothing. Like that's just awful. So
Right.
I feel like in that sense I've been a bit competitive with my brother, like needing to match his energies.
So, okay, so then is it about the specific accomplishments? Because I know you said, for example, with the business, you have to match the business. Is it specific accomplishments, or are you just overall saying, hey, like I just need to match the energy?
Yeah, I
Like
don't
if your
think
brother goes out and let's say your brother goes out and loses a bunch of weight tomorrow, are you all of a sudden gonna be like, I need to lose a bunch of weight, or what's going on?
something like that. Especially if it, obviously it has to kind of be like like a certain element of it is related to like 512. It has to be things that I see as worth it. You know, it has to be something that's important, that's a priority for me. But yeah, when I see kind of like, oh, people doing well in life are the ones who are entrepreneurs or the ones who are business minded, you know, and I see people in my lane or people kind of around me who are doing those things, I can't be the last one in that circle of people around me who's just not matching that, who's just not in the same level,
Right,
you know?
right. I find this quite interesting the way that you're framing it because it actually is a bit different than how Dave and Shannon describe number ones. Because number ones they describe as wanting to be at the very, very top.
Mm.
Whereas you're just saying you don't want to be last, which I relate to more.
Yeah.
personally. I'd much
Yeah.
rather not be last. Like there's like a saying of like you either love to win or hate to lose, and I hate to
Mhm.
lose.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think
I relate to that. Yeah.
that's kind of more so where that's coming from.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite interesting.
I mean,
Um,
I think I just I'm aware that, you know, rationally I'm not gonna be the top in everything that I do. Like that's just you know, I'm not gonna be the best at everything. It's like categorically impossible, right? So I just rather not be last. But if I do end up being the best in that lane, then you know, I thrive in it. I thrive being the best at something. I can enjoy it. But I'm very much aware that like at least as a minimum standard, not being last is definitely the minimum.
mhm, got you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we were talking earlier, and one of the things that we both related to as well was when we found out that we were number ones, we thought that it was almost like we thought that was the best type. Yeah. You want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I guess a lot of it is probably responsibility as well, maybe.
Okay.
Just because it just makes more sense to me that you would want to not have anything hold you back. So I feel like I cannot imagine a life where I'm just stuck and I can get myself unstuck, you know, especially if I'm very much aware of what the things are that are going to move me past a hurdle. I can't imagine getting to a point where you're just content with not jumping over that hurdle, you know? So
Mhm.
I think that's just so I think in that sense that the number one with the drive, with the need to always be doing better, I just think for the sake of just not allowing yourself to fall down or something, I don't know, to not not allowing yourself to get stuck or stay stuck somewhere for too long. I think for that reason, I think I can't imagine why you would want anything different. I just yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was kind of a question of whether us saying that number ones are the best type is us flexing about being number one. So it's almost like a
Yeah.
meta comment about our type, right? Because you're
Yeah.
like, number fours don't say I'm the best type. Friends don't say we're the best, right?
Yeah. I don't hear them saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about. So one of the other things that we talked about was um, there's a bit of contradiction with your social type and your 512 type, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the number ones, they're associated with DI, they're associated with save your sleep. And I think they associated with extroversion in some ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas with you, you're more of an introvert, you're blast last, you're demon sleep. So you want to talk to me about like what that contradiction's like? How do you see that in yourself?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you watched one of Shan's live shows where she was talking about like depression
Yeah.
and what that's like for the different that's exactly when I was watching that I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's exactly how I describe it. It's like for me it was manifesting as depression. It was me like wanting to reach the top of, you know, the mountain and but feeling like I was being held back with like there was like a massive ball and chain attached to my ankles
Mhm.
and then trying to climb that mountain with that attached and also just not having any clarity about what the best route is for me to get to the top of the mountain. So it was just like there's just constant resistance, and everything just feels hard, and it always feels like I'm going the wrong way, and so like before knowing my 512 and also my social type, like I had low self esteem because I kind of believed that I was inadequate in some way, that all of the reasons why I'm just constantly tired, constantly fatigued, really just can't, you know, just working really slow compared to everyone else who's kind of like go, go, go all the time. I just developed this sense of inadequacy. And so to compensate, I felt like I needed to constantly overwork myself to the point of like burning out. But then that would be counterproductive because then once I burn out, it means that I couldn't do anything.
Right.
And then I would beat myself up for not being able to do anything. And then that would like further feed into that feeling of like I'm inadequate. And then it was just like a spiral of depression. So that's kind of how it was coming up. But like, I think now knowing my 512, and also the social type one. It's like I'm accepting that I'm never like I'm never gonna be content not trying to move towards the top of the mountain. Like that's just never gonna. I want that sense of achievement. I'm always gonna want that. But also just accepting where my weaknesses are with my 512, and just knowing that that's like a deck of cards that I've been held, like that I've been handed. But that's the same with everyone. Everyone else has like a deck of cards that they've been handled, and so it's not a reflection of me as a person. It's not because I'm inadequate. It's just the circumstances that I'm having to work with, and I have to kind of like, it's just my job to manage those two, rather than it being I'm inadequate. It's just, these are the cards that I've been dealt. So, but yeah, it was a lot of depression, a lot of low self-esteem, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, I related to that a lot. I mean, I deal with. I actually have bipolar, so I don't know if
Mm.
you know that. So it's like
Yeah.
I have the clinical depression type of thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that I want to attribute to OP, to be honest.
Hmm.
But I definitely, with my depression, there is an element, I will say, of like the number one flexing of I'm not the best, therefore I'm suffering.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So, and I think the way that you described it was not living up to your potential, basically.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think that that is something that I can relate to a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I guess when you get into those down moments, what do you do? What do you do to get yourself out of those situations? Do you rely on anything as a number one to get yourself out, or do you have to use something else?
I think I had to, a lot of it was self-talk for me, because the voice in my head is so critical. Like I'm so hard on myself, like really, really tough on myself, like very critical of myself. I can't allow myself to let a mistake go.
Mhm.
So I think it was just a lot of learning to talk to myself in a very compassionate way. And that is where it started for me, rather than seeing a mistake or a shortcoming or a challenge that's not that easy to overcome, rather than seeing that as a like berating myself for that. It was a lot of being compassionate, being more understanding to myself. And I feel like moving forward, I can work a little bit more effectively, because I'm not tiring myself up, because I'm already tired all the time, but
Mhm.
I get extra tired when I'm beating myself up. So it was just a lot of being talking to myself in a very kinder way, and then just, yeah, which is a little bit more motivating, than constantly criticizing myself, and just, yeah, telling myself, um, that I need to do better, that things are wrong, and all of this stuff. So a lot of it is just self talk. I think that's how I kind of get out of it, because I think that voice in my head is just always going to be running. I'm always going to be telling myself to move forward, to drive, to do better, and all those things. But it might as well be nice things that I'm saying to myself that are going to help me to move forward, rather than horrible things that are going to make me feel worse.
Right. Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
So it's almost as though, and this is something that I've been starting to track, it's almost as though you're using words of affirmation on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's like your form of self-love almost.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I have like part of my routine now. Every single day I have to tell myself something that went well, something that I did right, something, something good. And that's just part of it, rather than telling myself. I mean, I do obviously telling myself like areas of improvement, but the language that I use, and the tone is more compassionate. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I do make a point of I need to acknowledge some things that I did well, just because, yeah,
Right.
I need to start to celebrate my wins.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing on the social types, and then we'll move on. Talk to me about being demon friends. I'm very curious on what your take of that is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for me, it took me a long time to see.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see it now, but it's like it took me a while. So I'm curious to see what your take on demon friends is in your life.
Yeah. I think it becomes a lot clearer from like the OP meetup, and I see a lot of like the actual savior friends and what they're doing. like Floris and Chris and all of those and Jono. They're all like savior friends, right? And so they they want to hang like all the time. They just want to chill and vibe,
Mm.
and that's enough. Whereas for me, it feels like if you ask me to like it's the whole like barbecue thing. Like I don't like I want to see people and I want to hang out and stuff like that, but I'm not going to spend too much time doing that because I feel like I have other things to do. That's what it feels like in my head. Like
Right.
I would rather be using that time to do something productive or something that's going to further me or better me in some way. But just the idea of just hanging for the sake of hanging with no like purpose is kind of like I have to I have to go and just know that I'm gonna be like, I should be somewhere else, kind of thing.
Right.
So that's the only thing that I'm seeing with Demon Friends. I still feel like I don't really understand um, other things of what that like other ways that that might be coming up, but that's the one that I'm seeing the most.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I relate to that a little bit. I mean, for me, I mean, it's kind of ironic in my case at least because I'll say things like, "Oh, I have better things to do, so that's why I'm not hanging out," and then I'll go watch YouTube for like 4
Yeah.
hours,
Right.
right? So it's like I clearly had the time, but it's like it just feels weird when it's with someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's actually really funny because I used to see a lot of I used to see this meme that came up quite frequently where it was like let's say like a friend will call you up and ask you are you busy, and but I'll be lying on my bed like scrolling, and for me that's busy. Like I will tell you that I can't go and hang out with you because I'm busy, but literally all I'm doing is scrolling.
yeah,
That still feels like it's busy. Like I still can't give up that time,
right,
to just go and hang
right,
even though I'm doing nothing.
right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess we can relate on that.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So I think, I mean, overall, and then we'll move on. Like, how are you feeling about the social types as a whole? Right? Like, are you finding them useful so far? Are you confused about them?
For me, it feels like the last missing piece to the puzzle. I feel like with my Pi 512, it really helped me a lot. Like I learned so much, and I feel like because of that, I'm in a completely different place in my life, like mentally. But I feel like the knowing my social type has been the very, very it feels like the missing piece, the thing that I was looking for, because there was still that conflict that I wasn't understanding that my 512 wasn't able to explain. So that last bit of like the competitiveness and the drive and the self-critical talk and all of those things in my head that I wasn't understanding. I couldn't make that fit into the 512.
Mm.
Now suddenly makes sense, and it's like, oh, it just feels like a release because it's like, okay, now I have an explanation for the very last thing that I'm struggling with. And it kind of feels like now I have all of the answers, if that
Right.
makes sense. I have what I need I have everything I need to like send me on my way.
Nice.
That's what it feels like.
That's pretty cool. All right, nice. All right, so I'm gonna move on to your 512 type stuff related to your 512 type.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm personally very interested in your demon sleep, your double masculine NF demon sleep.
Yeah.
Um, let's start off there, and then I do want to kind of get into some of the functions in particular, but let's start with the sleep itself.
Yeah.
So, how would you describe that? How would you describe that? Like, what does that mean to you?
Um, I suppose I see it manifesting in a couple of ways. So I see it manifesting in like boundary setting, um, setting limit, like self control, basically what they say about self control. So it's just my ability to be able to control myself, and set boundaries for myself. So that's how one of the ways that I'm seeing it come up. And the other ways that I'm seeing it is like when I'm planning out my life, and I'm picturing how I want my life to be. That's another way that I'm seeing the sleep coming up. But also another thing is kind of managing my emotional well-being. So that's like the third way that I'm seeing it. So it's all about regulating my emotions. That's another way that my sleep comes up. So I think those are the three main ways that I'm seeing my
Okay.
sleep showing up.
Okay. And what about that? I mean, if I may ask, what about that is double masculine, if anything? Like, does the double masculine even matter to you, or?
I think it's the intensity, and it's the non-movability. Because that's where I will. That's the hill that I will die on. I can see myself getting very angry and irate when somebody threatens to move my my sleep, like move me in my sleep, like anything with my FI, like if God forbid you try to move my FI, like I will burn you. And
Okay.
like with my NI as well, like don't fuck with my plans. Like that's just so I feel like I'm very bitchy when it comes to my sleep. I think it's more just the energy that it manifests as. I'm just very, very firm on the sleep related stuff. Whereas with the other functions, I feel like you can sway me. I can be convinced, but it just I'm very bitchy when it comes to my sleep stuff. I think that's how I'm seeing it come up.
Interesting. Can you give me like an example of when you became non-movable?
Um. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a specific. Um. Okay, So I have a friend who I think is INTP. And she invited me to go and see her. So we went on like a girl date. And then she told me what she wanted to do. So she wanted to do like some kayaking. She wanted to just have a really fun day out, right? And so it became my responsibility to plan this day. So I started to plan it, and I got really like into the organizing, making sure that we were calling up all the places, getting all the tickets. And then she got there and she changed her mind about everything.
Oh my
And then
god.
I was super fucking annoyed. I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? And then we ended up, because of the fact that she just kind of changed everything around, we ended up just going for a stupid walk in the park. And I was just super pissed because I had excited, I'd psyched myself up to do all of these things. And I was just like really happy. I was looking forward to it. And I
Right.
spent all of that time planning it and everything. For her to
Yeah.
tell me on the day that she wanted to do something else, I was so fucking pissed. Like I was so salty. Um, so I think that's one of the examples. Is just I think it's just my energy can be a little bit bitchy when it comes to the
Right.
plans and yeah, just stuff like that. That's the best example that I can give you of how that might come up.
No, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I can definitely see I can definitely see that happening. Okay. So with the double masculine sleep as well, in terms of processing, how are you like what is that like for you?
So this is actually one of my favorite topics. I love talking about my NSC. Um, so processing, like what in particular are you talking about processing?
I
Anything?
I mean I don't know. I mean sometimes I don't even know what the word processing means first of all.
Okay,
So
yeah,
maybe we could start there
okay.
and work our way down. So what
Yeah.
like when you hear the word processing, what does that mean to you?
I think automatically, and again, it might be just because my double masculine sleep, I can see that much easier. I think for me, processing, it's about unpacking just the clog of emotions that are just building up. So that's the most simplest thing that I think of when I hear processing. It's kind of like I've piled up a lot of emotional baggage, and I kind of need to just go back and deal with that shit. So
Mhm.
that's like the first thing that would come to my mind when I think about processing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and especially with like the NS sleep, it's really more about me understanding why I felt the way that I felt. Like if I'm in a situation, somebody says something, somebody does something, and I'm triggered. In that moment, I won't really know why I'm triggered, but I can recognize that I feel off. And then like I just feel off, like I feel it in my body first, but I feel like I'm off. And then it won't be until I go away and I take some time and I start writing things down and I start looking back, I start thinking back, and then I'm kind of like making the connections. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I feel off, and this is why I feel the way that I feel. And to me, that's processing. But
Mhm.
if I'm not going back and spending some time thinking about it, I will literally move on to the next situation and take another hit, and then things will just build up until I'm like so fed up and so annoyed, and just it becomes harder to deal with. But if I'm like If I'm like respecting the fact that actually before I let this settle, I kind of need to process it, go back and really understand it. Then I can kind of move on to the next thing, feeling lighter,
Yeah,
and feeling better.
got you. Okay. Now that's so your sleep is a demon for you. So what was that discovery like? I guess did you find out about it when you were typed, or did you have an understanding about it before? Like what was that like?
I think I didn't have the word for it, but I think I was doing a lot of sleep processing before, because I think where it's double masculine, I can see it very clearly. But also because of the nature of my job anyway, the nature of the work that I do anyway, we have to do that kind of stuff for work anyway. So I think I already had like a head start doing that.
What do you
Um,
do for work?
like therapy.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously, as a therapist, before you do any therapy, you're encouraged to deal with your own shit, right? So already with that kind of being in that kind of field anyway, um, like dealing with your shit and going back and healing wounds and stuff like that is a practice, is a general practice that we do anyway. So I think because of that, and also being double masculine sleep, and also it being a hobby animal, I feel like those were things that I was already aware of that I was doing, just not realizing, not having a name for it. But also, I think where the demon sleep comes into it is because I wasn't doing it soon enough. Like it would be something that I would wait like 6 months before I go back and process. Whereas now it's something that I do every day. Like I have to, like it's literally I set aside time in my day before I sleep, like because it's just a thing for me now to not carry anything over into the next day, because I know it's just gonna fuck up my whole day.
Mhm.
So it's just an everyday practice that I do. Whereas before it was like it could be like 6 months before I've gone back and thought, oh shit, actually this actually really affected me in this way.
Mhm.
Um, and I was talking to Sam about this, because we were talking about similar things. How with the save with like play over sleep, it's like, let's say I go through a breakup or something. I won't realize I'm bothered about it, that I even care, until like 6 months after, when it starts to hit me. I'm like, oh shit, this breakup actually hurt me. This actually affected me. But in
Yeah.
the first 6 months, I'll be like thriving. I'll be moving on to the next thing. I'll be so happy. Like you would think that I didn't care, but I do. I haven't done the sleep processing to know that I've actually been hurt by this.
Right.
So that's kind of, yeah. So it's just, I think it's more about time, like the time that I was putting into it.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So breaking down the sleep a little bit further, I am curious about. So let's start with your masculine NI, your demon NI last, right? So that's going to be in OP. That's the biggest problem. That's the biggest demon for you, and on top of that, yours is like the least activated. So it's like you have demon sleep and demon blast at the very end. So your
Yeah.
NI is really going to be a blind spot.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I mean, tell me first of all what you define NI as in your experience, and
Hmm.
then just kind of share with me what it's like to have that as a demon.
Yeah. I had a massive conversation about this with my twin type the other day. We had dinner and we were talking about how I think it's a lot easier for us being a masculine, because they say that if you're gonna have a life function, like it might as well be masculine, right? Because it's a you hold on to it a lot more and it's a lot easier to see, which I think is why I kind of type myself as well as the IJ, right? Because I can see it. I'm just not actively working on it. I'm
Mhm.
just not putting in the time and more like conscious effort to do it. Like, but I can see hints of it and I can see bits of it. Sorry, what was your question? I forgot what your question was.
So, tell me about how you're describing it. Like, how would you define NI, like in your experience? Like, what do you associate with NI?
Yeah,
Like in your
so
life?
one of the things that I see is probably noticing my own patterns.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I think that's the easiest way that I can see it. But also, imagination is quite big for me as well, because I have a very vivid imagination. Like I see things in my head very, very clearly, and I think that's one of the ways that I can, like, it constantly feels like I'm staring at the back of my own eyelids all the time, because of I'm just in my head, like seeing pictures and seeing images and stuff. And like the sensory stuff out there is just washing past me. Um, so I think for me, it's imagination. It's also noticing patterns, my own patterns, my own life patterns. Um, and they talk about like gut, you know, that sense of gut, like, oh, I have a gut instinct.
Yeah.
That's another one. Like I feel I get the sense that something is gonna happen, and that's just kind of like another like gut thing that I say a lot. Um, yeah, I think those are the main ones. That's what I think I can the best
Got
thing that I
you.
can come up with at the moment. Yeah.
And so, I mean, so why, I guess, how is that a demon for you? Because, I mean, it sounds like you're in touch with it.
Yeah, so one of the things that I recently processed was an element of paranoia that that I wasn't seeing until you know the live that we did for Sean's show when we were there.
Yeah.
And she came up with the error log that was super helpful because what she said, the advice that she gave me about like EPs and the conspiracies and stuff, like I never thought that I had any of those. I don't have any of those like big ones like the ones that she was describing. But after she said that and after she talked about the error log, I started to realize actually I do have a sense of paranoia that I'm building in my head, but it's very very unconscious and it's very very quiet, so quiet that I missed it. I didn't even realize it was there. And I think that's what the demon is. It's like when they talk about it being unconscious, like that's how unconscious. It's such a small voice that I dismissed it, and I didn't think to spotlight it or anything like that. But once I'd written it down, I realized that actually it is a huge problem. And I think when I go into that swing, I think it freaks me out, and then I have panic attacks and stuff like that. But where it's a very very quiet voice in my head that I was so quiet that I kind of overlooked it. I think that's where the unconscious part of it comes up.
Got you. Okay.
Is that
Yeah,
making any
I think it's making sense. I mean, I like, so as I'm an EP as well, I don't know if I um have any conspiracies myself, to be honest with you. I like, actually, like, the only conspiracy that I have is that I think people are always talking negatively about me, basically. That's
Yeah,
like my one big fear.
yeah,
But I think that um the error log, I mean, I definitely actually agree that the error log was like really useful advice. I've started to do it myself. I'm not sure if you've
yeah.
started as well. But yeah, like just writing down what my issues are is like, I'm not, I don't know if I relate as much to the conspiracy. So I'm just curious as to whether that's NI exclusive, or maybe I'm just not seeing mine, like something.
Yeah. I think that's why I dismissed the whole conspiracy thing because I don't relate to having any of those big NI conspiracy paranoia. Mine are very similar to the one that you talked about people talking about you behind your back. The one that I have is that I feel like people are going to take advantage of my naivety because sometimes I'm very very naive and I feel like people are going to take advantage of that and then manipulate me to
Mm.
the point where I self destruct. So that's not like, oh, 5G is taking over the world. It's not like any of those big.
Yeah.
It's just very, very, very subtle. And then another paranoia that I dismissed because I thought it was so minor, but I think it's actually like and I have this paranoia that there's something that I'm not. There's a piece of information that I don't know regarding my business that if I don't keep up with it, it's gonna catch up with me, and then I'll end up in jail or lose my money. And that's a fear that very subtly goes through in the back of my mind, but it's kind of like that missing information. Like I feel like there's something that I don't know that I should be watching out for, I should be checking out for, but I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and then at some point, like the further I go into it, I'm gonna end up, in jail because I haven't been checking there.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about that paranoia is that, like, it seems legitimate. I mean, I definitely with the business one, it's like I would be worried about that too. I think I do worry about stuff like that
Yeah.
personally. And so I guess what that makes me think about is like the savior fears maybe do have some legitimacy to them, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I guess it's just more along the lines of how you handle that fear as opposed to what the fear is.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's a reasonable fear, right?
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
your business to tank. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the fears that we have are, I think they have some basis in reality. Like I feel like, a lot of them are not that far fetched to imagine that that could happen. The same with deciders, some people do hate you, some people are horrible people, but it's like you said, I think it's the way that we react. But also I think it's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, when you go into that swing. It's like suddenly I'm all in on that paranoia, and suddenly I've forgotten all of the other sensory and all of the other facts. I've just thrown all of that out because now I'm
right,
in an I swing. I think that's when the demon part about it is I'm not kind of like balancing the two. It's either one or the other, and it's all or nothing.
right. That's fair enough. Okay. So that helps explain the NI. Talk to me a little bit about the masculine FI. I mean, that's a powerhouse, right?
Just reading iTunes comments. Sorry, yeah.
Oh, you just got to Odom's comments. Okay, yeah. He's been here the whole time.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, talk to me about the masculine FI. Like, what is that? Like, how would you describe that? What does that mean to you? Things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Um, I feel like I feel like FI is the hardest one to describe because it's not anything that you can. It's not tangible. There's no logic to it. It's a sense. Um, I don't know how to describe FI. It's just a feeling. I think one of the things that I noticed as well, being like masculine FI, is how it manifests.
Okay.
I noticed that when my FI is fucked off, like the one emotion that I always feel is some kind of variation of anger. Like I don't often feel a wide range of like I'm either really happy or I'm some kind of angry. I'm either really happy or I'm resentful or I'm annoyed or I'm peeved or I'm frustrated. But
Mhm.
I think with the masculine FI, and I feel like with the feminine FIs, I noticed that they tend to feel like sad and and like variations of sadness, whereas I don't feel that. I just tend to either feel euphoric or angry, or some kind of form of angry.
Right.
So that's how I see my FI manifesting. It's either I'm either very happy or I'm very pissed off. That's,
I don't know if I relate to that. I do feel like I have a range of emotions. I've been told that I don't show emotions that often.
right.
So I think maybe that's what's interesting. But I feel a lot of fear personally, happiness, sadness, like anxiety, like a lot of anxiety. I would say on my
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I guess what's interesting about that is that regardless, the masculine FI doesn't have, like you said, it doesn't have a large range of emotions.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
only has a select few that it's intense about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I did feel a lot of fear, but I associate more. I've come to associate my fear state with my NI. I
okay,
feel like if I'm afraid, my something about my NI is triggered.
okay,
That's what I've noticed. So I automatically, if I'm feeling scared, if I'm feeling afraid, I automatically just zero in on, okay, what pattern am I not seeing? What am I not understanding? What am I not catching?
right,
Um, but if I feel angry, I know I need, okay, there's some emotion that I haven't processed here.
okay.
Um, I
Now,
think there's just still an association with that.
now, do you have the David Goggins, Kobe Bryant mentality towards FI, where it's a fuel, that anger and that motivation is a fuel for you, or how do you feel about your your intense emotions? I guess.
Um, That's a good question. Do I have that? Do I have that fuel? I don't like to. I don't. I want to say no because I feel like I don't like to fuck with my FI, and I feel like that's probably just the non-movability of it. Um, I don't want to give somebody else control of my emotions. And so I don't, in that sense, I wouldn't use my emotions as a fuel, because I just know that it's gonna take. I just know how much it takes for me to get myself back to a good, an emotional state that I want to be in. So I don't fuck with my emotions. In that,
Mhm.
so I don't use them as a tool. I don't think, not consciously. Like, I'm not saying, oh, in order for me to do this thing, I need to be annoyed. I need to be, you know, that's, I don't think that's how I'm motivating myself. I don't think,
Mhm.
um, just because yeah, I don't want my emotions to move like that. It's too much moving to
Right.
me. It seems too dangerous.
Dangerous how?
Well, because also being demon sleep, I just know it's going to take a little bit more time for me to process that, and that's time I'd rather be doing something more productive,
Mhm.
um, than having to dig through my shit. Um, so I think where I can, I just try to keep myself at a good emotional state, just because I know. And again, that could be like the demon sleep fear, but like, it definitely sounds like that. But yeah, I think I try to, where I can, wherever possible, just keep in control of my emotional state as much as I can.
Got you. So it's more about the control than the intensity.
Yeah. And I guess that's another, like, masculine NI, right? It's like I'm very like shovey with the control. Like, I'm very
Right.
weird about it. I'm not calm, I'm not chill. I feel like somebody who is, one, didn't have the control as a demon, and also maybe masculine, would be a little bit more free flowing and a little bit more confident in their ability to control themselves. But where I feel like the control is last, I'm just such a bitch about it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So talk to me about, so we got through the demon sleep. Talk to me a little bit about being demon blast. I mean, that's going to be your biggest thing. I
Yeah.
don't know what that's like. So you're going to have to elaborate on what that means.
Um, so when you first asked me the question, I used that like statement where I said it kind of felt like being born, like a newborn coming into the world for the first time. That's how it felt. Because, like, my whole life, I constantly felt like I was on the outside looking in. Like, I never had a sense that I was part of this world, and I guess that's just me being introverted. But it felt to me that when I started to, like, work on, um, like, producing outwards, it started to feel like I actually feel like I am part of this world. Like, I'm not just looking into the world and seeing other people's interact into it. Like, I'm actually here.
Right.
I'm actually part of this world. And so, yeah, that's how I would describe the blast app. And I guess it's that kind of, balancing out the imbalance in the extroversion. Because I've got one missing, right? I've got one extroverted animal missing. And so, like, when you start to add that into the mix, it starts to feel a little bit more balanced. Starts to feel a little bit more like I'm here with everybody else, and I'm present. I'm part of this world. But whereas before, it never felt like that. I constantly felt like I was on the outside looking in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I have a note here. So with the blast, related to the blast, um, there's a blast consume swing. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A good example is, like, for, like, while I was studying this year, um, I realized that I put in a lot of more time doing the reading, because, obviously a lot of my job is both like theory and practice. So we have to read a lot, keep up on, like, articles and stuff like that, but also we have to do the, like, the clinical work. So we have to see patients. We have to actually start to do the practice. We have to start giving therapy. And I noticed that I'm very anxious when it comes to the actual therapy part.
Mhm.
And I'm always, like, in a session, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I doing it right? Like, am I, like, is this the right thing that I'm doing? Like, I'm just very anxious in my head when it comes to the actual practice, the real world application. And I think I overwork the behind the scenes stuff, where I'm reading up on this problem, or I'm reading up on how to treat this problem, and what you might see, and what kind of presentations you might get. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I feel more comfortable doing, and
Right.
I'm a little bit more settled, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm overworking. And then when it actually comes to like working with patients, and I'm actually doing the job, and learning on the job, I'm just super anxious about it. I'm just super. So I feel like that's where the consume black swing comes, where I'm now being forced. I'm now having to do some actual work, but I feel like I don't feel equipped to do it, because I just haven't been putting in the work and the time and the muscles. Like, because of course you learn by doing, right? You
Right.
learn, and it's very surprising to me that I've realized that a lot of the things that I've learned are the things that I do in the sessions with the patients that I'm trying to put off. But what I do is I notice that wherever possible, I do prolong the actual doing stuff. And then when it comes down to it, I'm like super anxious. I'm not calm.
Right. I relate to it a lot. I guess a follow-up question that I have is, when you're doing this overworking the consume, as you said, doing all this research on the back end, do you feel like when it comes time to actually do stuff, your mind is filled with too much information and then you get like kind of stuck?
Yeah, like I don't know how to retrieve that information when I need it,
Right.
because it feels like there's a lot. So it's like something will happen, and I'm just like, oh wait, it feels like a mind blank in a way, because I actually know too much,
Mm.
but I haven't. But the things that I know are things that aren't really processed properly. They're not really. I haven't done the NI right. I haven't like practiced it. One of the things that we have to do for work is we have to like, if we're explaining a concept, for example, people have a certain way that they might explain it, and you have to do that over and over again. But I don't do that. I don't do that practice. I don't learn a
Right.
concept and then I practice it, and then I practice how to say it, and then I present it to my patients. I'm not doing that. So when I actually come down to actually doing that, I'm like, what do I say? How do I explain this? How do I? Because I haven't even practiced, because all I've been doing is reading about the problem instead of actually learning how to practice it, and doing the work. So
Right.
yeah, that's another thing. I get tongue tied when it comes down to needing to actually do the work, because I feel like I've been so focused on doing the reading that I actually haven't learned how to do the practice.
Right. Okay. Got you. I'm looking at my notes here just to see if there's anything else. Are there any fears that you associate with your OP type? Anything
Um,
that you're afraid of?
yeah, going to jail. It's a big one. Like
Really? What
yes,
would you go to jail for?
I don't, and like, that's another like paranoia thing. I feel like somebody is going to frame me, and
Oh my gosh.
yeah, like I feel like somebody's gonna frame me, and then they're gonna lock me up and throw away the keys, and then I'm never gonna see the day of light, like, ever
Wow.
again. Yeah. Like, I'm the only reason I'm a law abiding citizen is because I'm so afraid of jail. Like, I feel like if I wasn't so afraid of being trapped in jail, I would probably be so carefree. But like, yeah, no, I don't want to go to jail, man.
Oh my goodness.
I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't survive. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm either.
yeah.
Do you have any other fears about that you think? Well, actually, before that, so that would be what, demon control, right? Demon and I, or something like that.
Yeah, like feeling trapped, not having autonomy in jail. Like, they treat
Right.
people horribly in jail. Like, you're basically a bitch. And I can't imagine never being able to go where I want, do what I want, and it's a hole, and I feel like I would die in that hole.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any other fears that you associate with OP at all?
I think my money, spending the way that I spend my money. Like, I've never been somebody who's bad with money. Like, I would never spend money that I don't have. But the money that I do have, I do kind of I used to spend it on a lot of stupid shit. Like things that just weren't like furthering me or anything like that. So I think I have developed a fear of like losing control of my money.
Hmm.
Um, Being manipulated is another one. Again, that's just like the missing information stuff. Like, I feel like there's something that I don't know that other people do, and they're going to use that against me, and manipulate me to hurt somebody else, or to ruin my life. I also have a fear of losing my mind, like my state of mind, like my consciousness. I can't imagine not having control, agency of my own life because I just don't have a state of mind anymore. Like that's something that terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
Also losing control of my eating habits as well. Like that's been a huge problem in my life. And I feel like I very much fear that I will lose control of my eating and then I'll end up obese and die from diabetes or something like that. So that's another big fear. Just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of like losing control and just like yeah, not having agency of my own life.
Got you. Got you. That's fair enough. Okay. Um, so we talked about OP for quite a while. Is there any, let me, before I move on, is there anything about OP, about your type, that we haven't talked about that you think is interesting to talk about?
I mean, it's all interesting to me. So it's all interesting to me. So I don't know about interesting, but you did ask the question before about like, do I have my own TI? And at the time that you asked it, I didn't really have an answer to that, but I think I kind of see it now.
Okay.
I think the way that my TE manifests as like being blessed as well. Sometimes I prefer to do things on my own. I prefer to do the done doing on my own, like the cooking, the food shopping, cleaning and stuff like those are jobs that I would rather just get on quietly by myself without any interruption. Like I don't want to do those with other people because I feel like it will slow me down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I guess I can see how on the outside that would look very much TI, which is probably another reason why I thought I was IJ as well, just because I'm seeing myself doing the done doing, and I get very mad when people start coming in and they start telling me how to do it and um, start interfering. Like I just want to get it out of the way and done by myself.
Right.
So that kind of stuff.
Right. Got you. Okay. Cool. Now I know that you're, so in the OP community, you have, or you are a part of what's called the SF show. So you want to talk, what is the SF show? Let's start with that, and then you want to tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so the SF show is just a bunch of uh, four people with the lead SF animal just being SF as hell. And it was the way that it started was so fucking stupid. So we were at the OP meetup. I think it was like was it the first one or the second one? It might have been the second one. And we were all high, and Sam was he had an idea. He had an inspiration, like because he was high, right? And he was like, "Hey guys, let's do an OP show." But me and Hannah, like, we took it so literally. So we then spent like the week after that, just like really like having conversations about what it could look like and you know what it could be. And then we brought that to Sam, and we were like, "Hey Sam, so you mentioned last week that you want to start this show," and he was like, "What? What?" I was joking, but okay. And then he just jumped on it, you know, being savior play. And then we wrote Emmanuel in, and the rest is history. It was just so. It was by accident the way that there was no, it wasn't well thought out at all.
Yeah.
It just happened.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys have been doing great. I've really enjoyed your episodes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I guess so. The way that the SF show has been described to me is that you guys are doing it in terms of seasons. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, so can you tell me a little bit about what each season's about?
Yeah, so we have like a theme for each season. So the season just gone. I think the first one was just kind of trial and error. We were just kind of doing whatever, but it was just kind of general questions about us anyway, and how we are interpreting the SF animals. And then the second season, we were looking at interviewing our demon counterparts, so people with the demon animal of our lead animal. But we were doing observers.
Mhm.
So that was that season, and then the season coming up is going to be the same thing, but we're doing deciders. So we're going to be interviewing people with demon SF animals that deciders. Yeah,
That's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I need to tune in to see the difference
yeah,
there.
yeah. So if
And
anybody wants to see the difference between the observers and the deciders, yeah, look at the season 2 and season 3.
nice, that's pretty awesome. Okay. So what? Let me ask you. So getting out of OP and just more just about life stuff. So what are you up to nowadays? I mean, I know you said you're working in therapy. as a therapist? Are you up to anything else? If you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, so at the moment, I kind of have tunnel vision on my work. So I just finished my diploma. So if everything comes up, if I pass like the last assignment that I submitted, I will be a fully qualified CBT therapist. I obviously have been trained, like working while I was training, but I can officially call myself a CBT therapist. So I'm trying to move towards doing that. So I think my focus at the moment is on work. I started a podcast a couple of weeks ago. So check it out if anybody's interested in mental health stuff. It's called Unmuted Voices in Mental Health. So I just bring on a lot of people who have something to talk about relating to mental health issues. It started off as a way to kind of like help me to exercise my like blast and like sharing information. But actually, what it's ended up being is just me sitting back asking a lot of people questions. So it's not, I'm not even doing any blast. So
Right.
that was the process. But I'm really enjoying the process of networking and learning from other people's experiences and speaking to different people as well. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, so basically, I'm just trying to set up um, my own like private services. Starting my podcast, I want to go and I want to start a blog as well, so I'm going to start that at some point. Yeah, mostly that's what I've been focusing on.
Nice. Nice. And then so when we're done, you could go ahead and we'll talk, and I'll put the links in the description so you guys can share that. Okay. And then I guess the last question that I have for you is: Are there anything in your life other than OP, let's say, that you care deeply about that you feel comfortable talking about?
I would say probably first and foremost my family. That I think is, yeah. Other than OP and my work, my family definitely. But I don't know if there's anything to share about that. I just,
Right.
yeah, I think they're at the top of my priority list. Is family stuff. I just love being around my family, and family is very important to me. So I would say family and friends, definitely is something that's very important to me.
Got you. Okay.
I don't know if that answers your
It
question.
answers it. Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what I would be able to ask. I know you said you had a brother. Do you have any other siblings?
I have a half sibling, a half brother on my dad's side. My dad was very naughty back in the day. So I have a half brother. He's very much older, but I don't really speak to him a lot. But I think, yeah, uh, he's not very. He didn't have a very good relationship with my dad. So unfortunately, we didn't grow up together. We're not that close, but like part of our culture, he's still my brother, you know. So we still have to interact and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I'm not very close with him
Right.
as much
Okay.
as I'd like to be.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have the
Mhm.
younger brother.
No, my other brother's older than me. 2 years.
Oh, he's older. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
2 years. Yeah, he's the one that's 2 years older than me.
Got
The
you.
one that I'm competing with.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So wait. Okay. So that means you're the youngest. So then,
Yeah,
what's like been like being the youngest child?
I feel like a lot of my 512 issues, I kind of put that down to being the youngest. It's
Okay.
like everyone is against me because I'm the youngest and I never get any say and oh, this bullshit. And I put a lot of that down to being the youngest and also being female because I think also culturally as well, like, because I'm Zimbabwean, and culturally, like, women just don't have much power, authority. Just, yeah, the system is just not built for women. So I feel like a lot of my a lot of my life problems have been down to they're controlling me because I'm the youngest and because I'm female. They're not letting me do what I want because I'm young and I'm female and all that stuff. So I feel like a lot of my blame has gone to the fact that I'm a young female
Yeah.
in the culture that I grew up in. Um,
Got you.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you're doing something for yourself, so I guess it's good. But um, that's all I have. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else.
Yeah. I mean, a question for you: was there anything in particular that you learned from what I said that maybe you relate? Because I know we have a lot of things in common, being number one being both EP, Demon Blast and Demon Sleep. So was there anything that you were like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
I think, I mean, just going back all the way to the beginning. So I definitely think that being a number one and having that need to not be at the bottom, like to not be left behind, I think is I think that's something that I relate to a lot, and that's something I'm going to reflect on when we're done with this conversation. Definitely with the number ones with the friendship, I'm kind of like that, because it's like, it's like, what am I doing here kind of vibes.
Yeah.
I think the other major thing is, I think with the sleep, I think there was something that you mentioned. I'm gonna have to watch back this episode to see what you said, but I think there was something that you were saying about the demon sleep. Oh yeah, like about partially being about processing the emotions up on the front end. And I think that's something that I don't know if I relate to, but it's something that I'm learning to do. It's something like that. Because my sleep is last. So that's something that I'm learning to do. I'm using the error log primarily for that. Which has been the error log, by the way. So the error log, it makes me see how petty I am. All of my number one annoyances are so petty. Like,
Right.
someone didn't talk to me a certain way, and like I'm mad. Like, it's like, what the hell is going on? Using the error log to process the emotions is definitely something that I'm going to be starting to do. So I think that I'm starting to relate to you on that point.
Yeah. You actually mentioned that a couple of days ago, didn't you? When we were after the live show, and you were like, "Yeah, I just had a number one moment," and I was like, "Yep, I feel those all the time. Like it's so dumb. Like it's so dumb." Are we able to do you feel comfortable sharing that? Because
oh yeah. So Shan had a live show. And towards the end there, she has a section where she lets people jump on the StreamYard and like share their screen, and people can be together and stuff like that. So I jumped on, and it's like it was a pretty good thing. I got to ask my question. It was good to see Shan and everyone else. I had to turn off my camera because my mom was asking me a question, and so while I was turning off my camera to answer that question, Shan took me off of the live stream. And so by the time I got back on, I was like, "Oh crap! She just exited me out of that live stream," and I got so salty off of that. Like, and it's such a silly thing, because it's like, first of all, it was silly because you guys left anyway, like 2 minutes later, because she was like, "Hey, does anyone else have any questions?" Right, whatever. But like, I think the second thing is like, it's something so minor as that, like having not being able to say bye the way that you wanted to, or the not having the respect that I thought I wanted, or whatever. I think it's definitely something that I'm seeing, that's just one of many examples of me being a number one in my error log. Because I have expectations that I have in my social interactions, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because you have to laugh about it, because it's just like, because if you don't laugh about it, if we don't laugh about it, then we're just taking it too seriously, and then we're just feeding into that like number one. But I just found that so funny, because I remember saying to you like, that's exactly how I felt at the time. I was like, yeah, I had that same like fuck off Ray or whatever it is. But they're so fucking stupid. I know we were joking about like number ones are the best, but I wouldn't recommend them.
I still would. Maybe I'm still a little bit high on my own supply a little bit, but I think the number one is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's petty. I think
it's so petty.
It's a petty one.
When it's bad, it's so fucking petty.
Yeah.
So petty.
But I mean, I think it has its good points. All right. So thank you so much, Maria. This was great. Really appreciated your time, and thank you for sharing everything that you shared. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm definitely going to listen back to this and take some more lessons out of it. Quickly wanted to say hi to some people, saying hi to Odom. Good to see you. And Habib, great to see you. Habib was saying the number one stuff is also petty.
Yes.
Because he's also a number one, so I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Really nice.
so yeah, so other than that, hope you guys are all doing well. I'm gonna try and make episodes when I can, but you know, it really is up to you guys at this point. If anyone wants to be interviewed, then just reach out to me, honestly, and then I'll come and interview you. So that's basically how I've been running these. Maria, thank you once again, and I hope that you guys all have a great day. And I'll
Thank
see
you so much,
you in the
Rosie.
next video that I make. Take care.
Thanks for your time. Thanks, guys, who are commenting.
Bye.